Yeah, welcome. If you're there watching us or you watch the recording later on, welcome to this stream. This is our first one for the year after we've been gone for about a year now, more than a year I think, since we did the last BB live. But I'm glad that today I have a very awesome guest, a friend of mine. And before we go to him, I'd like us just to introduce this concept. What we are doing here is mainly to just have conversations around how do we become better software developers or software crafters. And it's just more because the way we started this channel was I used to teach guys some easy lead code questions and then that was to help folks get some jobs and all that. So but this is like after you've gotten the job, you are working at Microsoft, Google, Amazon, whatever company that you feel like it's like the best of the best, where you want to be. What next? Most people end up just maybe settling, decide, okay, I've reached, you buy a good car and just chill and kick back. But I think there's more to life than that, and also you need to keep making yourself better. So this channel is all about how do we improve ourselves and become better people and better software developers. So this will be most of our conversations around this. And I have a co-host, Clement. I think you've seen him in some other video that we've had before. Clement's a good friend of mine. He'll also have some chance to talk a little bit about himself or just introduce himself. But I've set aside his own time that I'll host him, because he's another individual and just needs some time to tell us what he does, how he does it. Okay, so Clement, I think you owe me one time where you'll be on the hot seat. yeah. But for now, you can just introduce yourself quickly, just maybe just anything, and then we can go to our main guest today.
Yeah, Clement, software engineer, so happy to be here and part of the show.
Awesome. So, okay, so I'd like to go ahead and before I start, I go to Japheth. Just housekeeping, please. I don't ask this. I realize I never beg people to subscribe, but you know these things now. Life forces you to go to those extents. So please subscribe. If you're watching here and you have not subscribed, it's free. You just click on that button, subscribe, and also share with your friends. I only need you to get me to 1024 subscribers. 1024, and then from there I know what I'll do from there. Okay, but 1024, that's the number I'm looking for. So looking forward to your subscription. So thanks. On to my guest today, Japheth. Welcome so much on this stream. I've known Japheth for quite some time now. We're getting to 10 years very soon. We're getting 10 years maybe in a year's time. So it's been quite a good friend of mine, and I call him Mzee Wakazi. That's the name I call him. So every time you hear me say maybe Mzee, just know it's him. I don't want to, I might spoil if I try to introduce him and try to say, okay, this and that. But Japheth, I want to start with the question that we always ask in interviews. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for hosting me in this stream. I think what you're doing is a really good job and adding an African voice to the bigger technical conversation. There's a lot of people, especially in Africa, getting into tech. They don't see people like them being where they want to be. So I think it's important that we make our voices as African software engineers or people in technology be heard and become an example to people who want to follow the same path. So kudos for that. And thank you for hosting me. It's an honor being here. I know you could have invited a lot of people to sort of reinvigorate your stream with actually shows this. So, I feel privileged. About myself, I'm not very interesting actually, other than being a software engineer and liking reading. There is nothing much to me.
All right. Right, but I think most times we have everyone has a different view about themselves, and people like downgrade themselves. But I don't think you're not. I don't think that you're not interesting. So yeah, but I know. I think people will figure this out as we go through your life history and all that. So mainly for me, I'm always interested to know, to leave you to describe your journey, but especially your journey towards tech, because I think we have so many journeys that we are always going through. But for this one, I just want you to tell me, like, how did it start, right from the beginning? When was the first time maybe you saw a computer, or you heard about this tech stuff, and up to now? So just a quick overview of how you've come.
Yeah. I remember the first time I came across a computer. That was when I was around 12 years old. A friend had a computer and we were using it to play games. So that was the first time I came across a computer. But my interest in technology must have started after I left high school. I remember when I left high school and I was going to join university, I was going to study architecture. But between leaving high school and joining campus, something happened. I don't exactly remember what, but there is a good chance that I watched a movie and decided I want to be a programmer. I don't, like, the memory has lost its clear edges, but that is highly likely that it was a movie that got me into programming. So after that, I decided to study computer science at Technical University of Mombasa. But they didn't have computer science at that time. They had mathematics and computer science. So that's what I decided to take. I like maths, so the worst that could happen is I have a good time with maths. So, and then I remember I didn't have a computer when I joined campus. So my first exposure to programming was in my first year where we were doing C, and I just got so fascinated. I just found it so interesting, and I became obsessed with it. So during the long holidays, I decided that I would like to learn how to build Android apps. So I studied Java, and then studied how to build Android apps. By the time I'm going back for my second year, I was very knowledgeable. Like, there is one instance that has remained stuck in my mind, is where, like, in Kenya, lecturers write the code on the blackboard. So this lecturer was writing a Java program on the blackboard, and I saw a syntax error. So, like, out of enthusiasm, I shouted, "Okay, that won't work." And then everyone in class looked at me, so I just got carried away with the moment. But then, true to it, when people copied the code that was written on the blackboard, it didn't work. So everybody sort of started looking at me like a programming expert or something of that sort. But that is one of the most significant moments I had in campus. And then as I was getting into my third year, I started doing some projects for fourth years, guys who are about to graduate. And then I remember that just about around the same time, I joined Swahili. I was volunteering at Swahili Books, which is a tech hub in Mombasa. And before I joined, actually, Nandaa knows Ahmed Mawi. So
Yeah.
shout out to Ahmed Mawi. I reached out to Ahmed and asked him if he would be my mentor on Skype. Skype was still a thing at that time.
Okay.
And Ahmed ignored my message completely. He didn't reply. Of course, Ahmed and I are good friends now. I'm not sure if he goes to his Skype, he'll probably see that message. But I asked him if he asked me if he could mentor me, and then he didn't reply. So that was interesting. So I started, and then Ahmed comes to Technical University and says he's starting this thing called Swahili Box, and he's looking for volunteers. Well, to me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I just decided, okay, I'm going to volunteer here. I didn't even decide. I just found myself volunteering. It just naturally came to me to volunteer at Swahili Box. And it was actually Ahmed who gave me my first programming job, an Android job. So when I started out, I started as an Android dev. A year or so later, when I was in my third year, I joined Andela. So that meant dropping out of campus. And that was also my first time in Nairobi. I'd lived all my life in Mombasa. So I joined Andela. Then I was at Andela for 2.5 years. After which I joined Microsoft. And out of coincidence, I was the first full-time software engineer at Microsoft ADC. But that is only technically, I was technically the first full-time software engineer. Because when I joined there, there were a few folks who were there. There was Charles, Marvin, who else? I think I'm forgetting someone else. Yvonne, and a good friend called John. So these are the people who I found there, but because of circumstances, they were there as contractors. I think Chat is now a full-time engineer at Microsoft. But so when I got there, I was a full-time employee. So I was the first full-time employee in Microsoft ADC, which I think is a happy coincidence. And then I was at Microsoft for 4 years, close to 4 years. And then I left Microsoft and joined Amplify, where I worked for a year. And that's about it. Someone thank God. Yeah. So when I was working for Netlify in London, and then out of personal reasons, I decided to come back home to Kenya, and so that's my story.
Wow. Yeah, actually, I don't know if you noticed in the description of this stream. Actually, I said that you were the first. Almost the same words. I know you didn't read it, but you just said the same thing. Actually, that you were the first hire at the African Development Center for Microsoft here in Nairobi. So that was interesting. So that cannot be taken away from you. It's you go down the history. So
I'm happy to hear. So if only I could get $1 for every hour from me, I want you to work again.
Nice. So maybe from the Clement, do you have any questions for Japheth, just from what he said, like his journey, anything that you'd like him to clarify on?
Yeah, I think really one of the things that piqued my interest is when you said when you joined Andela was the first time you came to Nairobi, and that's when me realize that I've personally not been very active in the tech community outside of Nairobi, but I see there's a lot of people who do cross-country tours and stuff like that. So I was just interested to know from your experience, what the tech ecosystem is like outside of Nairobi, and especially in Mombasa. The enthusiasm, the level of participation, the opportunities compared to Nairobi, etc.
Yeah. I have a good friend called Daniel Otieno. He's doing a lot of good work with Google developer groups in Mombasa. So GBG Kwani, they call it. So that's been keeping the tech ecosystem active. And he also goes to, I think, other places in the country, to Uganda, to do this work, which I find really good. I think the tech ecosystem need community builders like him. Myself, I'm not much of an extrovert. I also like to keep a very low profile on the internet. So I gave this call quite a bit of thought and really thought whether I break Nandaa's heart or I show up. I think the tech ecosystem is thriving. Although I would say when I started out, Swahili Box was a really good place. Like it was very, I can equate my experience at Swahili Box to the experience I had at Andela, where there was a lot of bright people at a place just having fun and trying to learn as much as they can. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's good to hear the kind of impact Ahmed. I only know him a bit from an appearance he made to the university, but it's good to know that he has such far-reaching impact to this extent.
Yeah.
Yes. There is Ahmed who impacted me, and then there is also Ali from Swahili Box, and then there is a Tanzanian friend of mine, we call him Tabe. Also, he's the one who introduced me to using Vim. So I'm very grateful to that. For that.
Are you still using Vim or you managed to quit?
I couldn't exit, so I've been using it.
You're stuck on it. Yeah, but actually, talking of Vim, I'll need you for another session to just like demystify Vim for devs and maybe tell them like easy way they can start. Because I think it has some breakthroughs, like especially for just focus, right? Like how you can
Yeah.
and productivity. So
I can speak that later on the call.
Okay, good. So make sure to remind you on that. So that would be nice. Okay, I want also to give a shout out to Ahmed. So Ahmed actually, so these stories are really interesting. When Ahmed was Nairobi, he used to run GDG Nairobi. That time it's called GTAG, Google Technology User Group. And for me, I was in undergrad at UON, so he helped me start Google GTAG University of Nairobi. And then when I finished my undergrad studies, that's the time he was leaving to Mombasa now to start Swahili Box, and that's why I know you guys are meeting. But he actually the one who mentored me to get into this Google developer stuff. Yeah, so shout out to him. He's also still a good friend of mine. Actually, I should bring him on at some point. So
Definitely.
I'll chat with him. Yeah, because I think people underrate what communities can do. Like communities, the impact you never actually know how. Like if you just go and ask people stories on what they learned, just even in a meetup, you meet a friend, they tell you, oh, there's such a thing. I've never known such a thing like that. You learn so much from a community, and maybe a post-COVID communities have really struggled, but I just want to encourage community guys out there to keep at it, because it really helps. You never see the impact immediately, but over time it really helps. Yeah, and mostly it was being supported by Google, and now there was Facebook too. A mess. But over time, I think those companies have started to pull back, like because of economic times, pull back resources on supporting those groups. But we can do whatever we can. I think all you need is a space. Actually, community, just a space, guys, to meet. You don't have to have actually food and swag. You're just meeting. It would be nice, yeah.
So, meeting community. I think the other person who is doing a lot of good work in the community is Kimathi. Mike Kimathi at Africa Scotland is also doing a lot of good work building community.
With the AT, yeah. Awesome. I had two questions just follow up on your story. First was how was your experience with you? I just would like to know, like, I know I can even guess what you'll tell me, but I just want to hear. You stepping into the university, and already you've told me like what the lecturer wrote on the board, and then it was not correct. What was your experience like? Did you feel underwhelmed? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did you feel about the thought you had about university, and then when you got in?
I think that point was the turning point. Like at that point, I knew I'm not going to finish my university study. So I would say. At that point, I knew I needed to be somewhere else.
Yeah. So, Yeah, for me, I think over time, I've had this dance between forgiving my university and and expecting more from them. So, but over time, I think you can understand the context they are in, but I don't think we should excuse that for mediocrity. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah. But also, I think I like putting the more of the blame and the onus on the students, because I think the university should just provide a platform, and then for you as a student, it is now your duty to just go in and learn, not to expect like to get into a lecture to be taught anything. It's all about you going to learn on your own, and then the lectures should just be I don't know, just for formality. But the problem is that what I've actually seen is that the system punishes the guys who go ahead and do a lot like on their own. It does punish you severely. You because they'll expect you the cut to just name things, give maybe 5 reasons why this and that, and then it's not about the practicality of things. So anyway, I think that's another topic of another day. If we get a time, we can discuss about it.
I'll just add that, like, if a student reaches out to me and asks me whether they should drop out, I will tell them that they shouldn't.
Yes.
Because I've been extremely lucky in my career. So there's if someone drops out, they might not be so lucky and gets challenged. So I encourage, if you can finish your studies, finish it.
Yes. That's very true. Like I co-sign that completely, because it's really important to, when you start something, if you can just finish it. Like even myself, I had to challenge myself. I dropped out technically from my master's program. Also, I thought I'll drop out from my undergrad. Like I used to think I'll drop out, but for different reasons. I used to think that I'd be like Mark Zuckerberg, because that's the time that he was just coming up. I got in when we got in university when just Mark Zuckerberg was also studying his stuff, FB. So you can tell how old I am. But then I used to think that we can also all of us can be Mark Zuckerberg, but I found out the truth very early. So yeah. But actually finishing is good, because I think university should just be a way of a framework to just show you like how to learn. Whatever, forgive them if they're not doing the best job, but it's up to you now. If you've been enrolled, to just complete your studies, but also make sure that you're doing the best in your studies. But I think we'll have a topic for that, I think, at some point, where we'll just talk about education system, ways we can solve for it. Actually, I think that's a good topic to handle at some point. Yeah.
And maybe just before we move on from that point,
Yes.
based on like what you're going for at the time and the decision to drop out and maybe the frustration you felt, do you have any feedback you could give on, just maybe, for example, let's say a lecturer or some university staff is listening to this, that you could provide us feedback on ways, on things that you do to improve? Because I think like right now, what I've been seeing with some engagements within Microsoft and universities, like they're actually listening to this feedback and they're looking to ways to improve their offering and to the effectiveness of their teaching. So maybe even the feedback that you may have right now, maybe right now at this point in time, there's more willingness to listen.
Yeah, so I usually try and avoid giving advice because I'm not the best at that. But I think the recommendation I would give to students, especially, is to focus on building things in campus. That is the only recommendation, the only suggestion I can give is that they focus on building. Well, you can go to class and learn the theory, right? But force yourself to build something out of what you've learned.
Yes.
For example, if you learn about the cost function, can you like make that practical? Or can you write an algorithm that calculates the cost function? Just build as much as you can from the theory that you learn. So, but for lecturers, I wouldn't know how to tell them. Because one, I don't have a master's. I'm not qualified enough to advise them.
Yeah, I like that advice about just getting time to build. I think I hope students who are listening to this are taking it. Yeah. Now let's go to the meat of everything. So today I think I called you mainly to just because I've observed you. You've been someone who pushes yourself to become better every time. You're always building something. So you're not saying actually the advice about building is something that you're taking your own medicine every time. So I'd like you to just take us through your just anyway. I don't want to. You can take it any direction you want to take it for the audience. So just your approach to software craftsmanship and any of the tips and stuff that you like to share with folks.
Yeah. All right. So how I approach software craftsmanship, my current understanding of it might change later on. But like when I was preparing for this talk, I was thinking, how can I was thinking like, how do I understand software craftsmanship? And I think I came up with three parts to it. First, I think there is communication, at least for me, how I do my craftsmanship. Communication, and then problem solving, and studiosity. Studiosity is a virtue of being studious, like studying.
Hey, okay, thank you so much.
At least you
Sorry.
learn something new
Yes,
and
yes,
then,
I have to unload that to someone.
yeah. So communication is because software craftsmanship is a very social activity. Most of the time you'll work in a team or you'll work with others. So learning to communicate is really important. I think it's very important actually. And like one of the feedback I got, like when I was working with people from other cultures, was that I didn't have enough context in my communication. And working with Kenyans, you don't see that because Kenyan is a very high context culture. Because if I tell you, hey, I go left, you already know where to take the left turn. I don't need to tell you, the roundabout, take a left, right? So being aware of cultural differences in terms of how other people communicate whenever you're working with other people is very important. And also, the best software engineers I've worked with, they give very detailed documentation in whatever they're doing. Like you see an issue and you see like a back reference to an issue that was created 2 years ago, and you wonder how did this person know this issue existed in the first place? But being able to write clearly and provide as much context as you can is really important in the software craftsmanship. Personally, how I practice my communication is I keep a journal, so I try to write every day, although of course I don't do that, but that is the goal, to write at least every day. And this gives me an opportunity to describe how my day was, how I felt during the day. So just helps me practice my writing. And also my workflow involves a lot of writing. I think Nandaa can testify to this. Like my workflow involves a lot of writing. So whenever I'm working on a feature, I'm not really working to complete it. I'm just sort of trying to learn as I work on the feature. So it usually involves taking a lot of notes. I might go down rabbit holes. Usually the goal is for these notes to become a blog post, but they end up in my Notion for some reason or for some other, they end up at some other document management system. So that's on writing. And then on problem solving, it's pretty much what we're paid to do, to solve problems. And I think the tragedy in software engineering is probably someone else has already solved that problem. So usually there is a great temptation to just refer to what someone else has done or go on Stack Overflow and see what someone else has done and copy paste. That's a tragedy because it doesn't let you exercise your problem solving skills and creativity. So people say you shouldn't reinvent the wheel, but at least understand how the wheel works in the first place before putting it in your car, right? So regarding that, I usually try to solve the problem first myself, and then refer to other implementation and compare what I could have done better, what the other person has done better. And this approach actually has led me to make a few open source contributions. Like I have an open PR on Kubernetes that just came out of this curiosity. Like, okay, what else could be done here? And because of that, I realized Kubernetes was using some outdated API, or now they were loading atomic integers, and made a PR to fix that. The other exercise I do, as much as I can, I try to do a lit compression, because even if I'm not preparing for interviews, because I find them, like, they really push me to reason and try to solve the problem. The thing with problem solving is I usually try to work from first principles. So this means going to the documentation and like understanding what the thing does first, and then gather the information, like the basic information, to sort of assemble that information together and come up with a solution. So instead of just jumping to like a GitHub repo with a similar implementation and then try to copy paste. And the reason why I do that is because like when you go to a GitHub repo and then you look at the implementation, that is like the 100th iteration of that solution, right? So what you don't see is you don't see all the other previous approaches that the person took, all the other considerations. So when you look at that implementation, it's very refined, perhaps even too refined for you to understand why it works. And that is what usually I try to get to, is like, why does this work? Yeah. And then finally on studying, I enjoy studying actually. Even though I dropped out, I didn't stop. I didn't stop learning. So I think a few weeks ago, I showed Nandaa my to-do list, like the list of all the technical projects I want to do. And I've done some. Like I've built an operating system. I've worked on which actually became quite popular at the IDC because it's called Lil OS, and people are calling it Lilos. It's quite funny. It's a little operating system. So, and then I built a CLI framework, and then I've built a part of a build system, like sort of like building dependencies before the package that depends on those dependencies. And I'm currently working on a user space TCP stack, and that's how I do my studying. It's very project led, and when I work on these projects, what I try to do is to either start from an RFC and try to build it from scratch, like just from reading the documentation or just from reading the spec, build the thing, and then of course, like after I build that part, I compare it with other implementations and see what they've done different, what I've done differently. And I think I've also built an emulator from the elements of computing systems or something like that. Yeah. So I did the whole emulator part. I didn't start on the second part where you get to build the OS and the language. Because I'd already built an OS. I didn't need to do that. Yeah, I guess
That's
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think what you do, you help me with the links. I think some of them I know where they are, but you can just
Yeah.
those links. I'll put them in the description of this stream, so whoever is watching later on can get them. Yeah, but also if I'll also on the chat here for the guys who are live, I'll put a link to most of the stuff are on your GitHub, right? So I'll just put
Yeah.
your GitHub link here, and then everyone can just check out. But it's
It's
J-
fully open source.
yeah, your handle is J Obala.
Yeah, Japheth.
J Obala. So if you just go to github.com/J Obala, you get all these projects he's talking about there. Yeah, so I like the way you've broke it down to. I don't know. I don't think I'll have done it the same way. Like it's so interesting how you those three aspects of how you approach the whole idea of craftsmanship. And I think it resonates with me and makes a lot of sense. I wanted to just do some follow up from the thing that I was speaking. There are a number of things that were like what we call tweetables. I wish you just slow down and paused a little bit for people to tweet first. I think you mentioned like the tragedy like of software engineering or development is that probably someone else has already solved the problem. So, and even it just made me to think about even right now, some time back, like the last decade, right? It was the era of Stack Overflow, perhaps, right? Stack Overflow should have maybe started in 21. When was it launched? It had a good run, like of almost like 2 decades of a run, right? But now we are now in this era of GPTs and stuff like generative AI. And even for me, I did a post recently, just said how I don't check Stack Overflow a lot, but it just makes you think about that idea of the thing is already you can get answers, and then it's short-circuiting your learning somehow. So that tragedy of you don't have to now start thinking on your own from like first principles as you had mentioned, and you just get this answer maybe from ChatGPT or Stack Overflow, and then you solve the problem because either way you are running out of time. This was a feature that was needed by yesterday, so you ship it, and then once you ship it, I think humans we are inherently lazy. You won't want to go back and even just check, okay, how did I solve it, or go in and investigate and learn more. So yeah, that's a big struggle. And what are some of the things, maybe even you can chime in here, Clement, how do you maintain that balance where yes, you're getting these short circuit answers, but also you need to learn on your own, and how do you maintain that discipline to go and learn? Maybe I can start with you, Japheth, and then maybe Clement, you can add anything.
Yeah. So there are a number of times I've been beaten by not understanding the code that I'm putting into a code base. So my general approach is to avoid it in the first place, to avoid the short circuit. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you decide to you want problem always. You go for the pain.
Yeah.
Like you have to do the hard way. Yeah, I think
because I mean, out of that you also get a lot of context, because most of the time things are interrelated.
Mm-hmm.
So by going down a rabbit hole, you learn a lot of new things that you wouldn't have learned if, say, you got an answer from ChatGPT or Stack Overflow.
I see. Makes sense. Clement?
Yeah, I would say like when I was learning and tried to use Stack Overflow to ask questions. The way like Stack Overflow people are very strict about how you ask a question, how you answer a question. This is not the appropriate formatting. This is a duplicate. That as a beginner, that gave me a bad experience. So, like, I just avoided Stack Overflow together, except if the question I had is already answered by something, and Stack Overflow is already answered, then well and good. Otherwise, I just relied on debugging, and I think over time, I just rely, okay, whenever I run into a problem, I try to fix it, or I try to debug it myself. Actually, right now, I'm trying to sort of lean into going to external answers or solutions more intentionally, because it's not like my natural go-to. Even right now, I don't have Copilot installed on my EE, and I feel like, okay, maybe I should actually consider drawing yeah, like relying less on myself and see whether taking advantage of things people have solved, like reversing that mentality to see maybe that could boost my productivity or could help me find insights I could not have done, like relying on myself. But I would say I think I take a similar approach to Japheth, like go at it fast, and then once I've done it, then I look at other implementation. Of course, the flip side is it takes more time to do that, and maybe that's why I'm wondering whether I am losing productivity by having this mindset that I have, even given the benefit that it has.
Yeah, I think knowledge compounds over time, right? So I think if you'll be slow at first,
Yes.
but over time you'll become an expert over what you're doing. But if, for example, if you rely on a crutch to help you, over the long time, the compounding is minimal. So
Yes.
you become even more dependent on it, which I find less fulfilling. Because for me, what I find fulfilling about software engineering is the problem solving. That's what I find fulfilling.
That challenge, I think you're spot on, and I can't add anything. Like, you're really spot on. Like, it is for me, I wanted to say it in a different way, but you just put it very clearly that you might think that you're losing in the beginning. It's a bit painful. If you're not persistent, you might just give up. But as you said, like, it's all of like there's just a tipping point that it can just, from there, it's more like it's just exponential now. It's just like you, because you're building on top of whatever you had. So actually, as you said, compounding, if we're doing x to x squared, it means I'm just squaring the previous x, and I just keep going. So I like that, and maybe it's a challenge to me myself to. For me, I think the mixture of both, depending on like expediency, but I also really prefer getting the first principles. Like, I rather, like, if I'm starting a project, I rather spend some time and understand the first principles and everything, how this thing works. So I might be late on delivery in the beginning, but what I've seen, actually it work. Like, even just for my recent projects that I've done, it's like it doesn't take you long, like maybe 2 months, 1 month, and then the rest is just a flow. So, and then the good thing with knowledge, once you got it, like, you got it, it can't go away. It's just about a matter of, the brain is just a matter of just a trigger, and you remember everything that you learned. So I really like that. And that thing around understanding how that you don't have to, I need to print this thing somewhere on a t-shirt or something. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but at least know how the wheel was built in the first place. So I think that was a very strong point to just encourage that, like, understanding how everything works. And sometimes I always believe that there is, I'm also a conspiracy theorist, kidogo. I always believe that, because of capitalism, it's about, like, the big corporations and stuff to get more, like, to have the edge. So many people will tell you, why can't you just use our stuff? We already done this framework for you. Why not? But the idea is they have done in their own way, because everything in as problem solving, everyone won't solve the same way. That's the good thing about problem solving. Like, they're almost infinite possibilities, right, of how I can go about solving the problem. So someone discouraging you because they have just found one route, and even no one even knows whether it's the best route. Actually, even now, how do you know that Linux is the best OS that will ever be built? It's because most likely everyone found Linux, and they just say, okay, you try to build your own, and then maybe it doesn't get traction because of the same opium of, let's go with whatever that is working, and then we'll never see any other alternative that might have been, like, even very superior. So I think we still need another OS. We still need another anything, and no one should ever tell you that you don't need another wheel. So if you, yeah, so I like that. And yeah, take me a little bit about the lead code. I would like to know a little bit about the how you approach this lead code stuff to just stay on top of your problem solving game. There's a time actually my approach when I was learning like a new language, programming language, I'll say, oh, maybe to kill two birds with one stone, I'll use lead code or hacker rank to solve questions in that language. So whether it was Go or maybe if it's Rust, I do that as just a way of challenging myself. Like from there, you know a bit of the data structures of that language and stuff like that. Yeah, but I really love that approach that you're taking. And maybe just before I tell you to tell a little bit more about it before I will close I keep getting these guys like you now you have an interview next week, and then that's the time now you're running around like looking even through blackboard or wherever place like to there's this professor that I really love. He's called Abdul. I think you guys have seen him around. He really explains very well. Like there's no one I've ever found online that explains stuff very well like Abdul. And now it has like you have about 50 hours of watching, and the interviews next week. So I think maybe your approach can really help many guys who are just anytime you should be ready for interviews anytime. So yeah, just talk a little bit about it and how you approach it. Yeah.
So, the other thing with lead code is that the questions, it's really easy to keep on doing the same questions. So you sort of revert to using memory and reason to solve problems. Like you just remember the problem. You don't really know how to solve it. You just remember, oh, I do this, and I do that. So for my approach, I usually just pick random questions to avoid doing questions that I've done before. And my approach is usually to start from first principles. Like, okay, this is a problem. Looks like a graph might work. I try with a graph, or a graph didn't work. Probably I should have used maybe a stack or something. So my approach is to really try and solve the problem. I might even take days. I'm not really in the rush to go to the next problem. I just want to try as much as I can to apply as much of myself as I can to the problem until I solve it. The goal is to put myself in that uncomfortable situation where I don't know if what I'm doing is right, but I'm going to do it anyway and feel myself to the problem. Because one thing you realize in interviews, the chances of you finding a question you've done before are really low. And the most important attribute to have is to be able to do problems you've not seen before. Because that's what you'll find in the workplace. It will be problems you've never seen before. So that's my, I would say, inspiration for doing lead code. I just do them to exercise my problem solving. And I try to avoid problems I've solved before.
I love that. And just tell me a little bit about because of course this requires discipline, and then anyone can learn. Maybe someone is struggling with like just finding the time and all that to do this extra stuff, whether it's this lead code stuff, building personal hobby projects, and reading, studiosity. That's the I'll never forget that term. So tell me, like, what is your timing hack? Like, how do you do and also something that you didn't mention in the beginning. You're a father, and you're a family man. So how you balance all this stuff? Tell us.
Having a routine helps, because with a routine is you know what you need to do when. So that is my hack, is I have a routine and I try to stick to the routine as much as I can. So I do most of my studying in the morning, and then in the evening I go to the gym on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And then when I'm not going to the gym, I'm doing lead code. I'm either exercising the body or exercising the mind. That's how I do it. So So,
Nice. No, I like that. So just building a routine, and then so it's not just about like whenever I find time, right? Like whenever,
Yeah.
which you'll never actually find, right? Nice. So I think we are right at the top of the hour. So I don't want to take you long than this. But I knew this one will be short. It sounded like we just said your introduction and then we are closing.
yeah.
So let's checking the guide like to see whether there's anything that I've left. Wow, yeah, there's some stuff that I've left. But looking back, maybe any advice to your younger self, like looking back, your younger self. Yeah, I think already you've said about like when you're dropping out. Any advice to your younger self?
No, I think I've been perfect. No, I'm kidding. I would say I don't think I built enough when I started out in my career. I wish I could have built more things.
Hey folks, once again, we are really sorry for the technical glitch that we had. So we lost our video, and you could only hear the voice. So it's something that we know what the problem was, and we'll fix it for the next stream. So thank you so much for listening to this, and look forward for more great guests on our bench, and let's have fun. Have a good day, and God bless you.